Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to National Matters. And I just want to thank God for my wife, my family. Those of you that have been watching Camnet TV, you realize that for about a month now, I haven't been on set. It was yesterday when I preached, and also tonight I am honored to have Mr. Mulenga Sata. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am still recovering. You know that I was in the hospital.
Yes.
By the grace of God, nine solid days
Yes.
of being under oxygen, and it was just the grace of God.
No, we thank God. We are grateful.
Absolutely. Mr. Sata, how are you?
I'm very well, Pastor Chilua. It's a pleasure to be here, as I said, and I know I should have been here many times before, but they say better late than never. So thank you for hosting me on your show, and good evening, viewers.
Do you remember that many years ago, you and us were neighbors in Ron Road?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
We're neighbors in those flats.
Yes.
And I would always say to you that, Mr. Sata, I believe in you. I don't know whether you still remember, or you were just talking to yourself and say, he's a pastor.
No, it's not all the things that we can remember, and I think some things are imprinted more in the voice of in the memory of the person that is giving the message. I think also, I think one must be ready to receive the message. Sometimes you're being given messages that you can't quite comprehend. Yes.
Well, let's start. You are on National Matters, and I know the world would want to know who is Mulenga Sata.
Okay.
Tell us about your background, the school you went to. People have to know this, and I know these days that you cannot stand if you don't have a Form 5 certificate. You have brought marginalization between the people.
Yes.
But who is Mulenga Sata?
Okay, that could take some time, because I'm not technically a youth. I mean, I'm youthful in politics, but my life history is quite long. Mulenga Sata, Zambian. If we're we were born in Zambia after 1964.
Yeah.
I'm a married man, father of 3 sons. Unfortunately, we lost a daughter in 2009, so I'm blessed only with boys at this time. Christian, of course. I'm a confirmed Anglican, which is slightly different from the family, because the majority of the family, as you know, is Catholic. But for a lot of people, Catholics, Anglicans, it's more or less the same thing. It's just some variations when it comes to what the priests can do and not do. I studied, I went to Nkwazi, near behind Holiday Inn, the Ridgeway, as they used to call it then. And I did my O-level at a school in Botswana, Maruapula. The issue of O-level is very funny, because at some point I was accused of not having a grade 12 certificate. If I'm a grade 12, we wrote O-level, and it used to be A-level. I subsequently did my IB, which is an international baccalaureate, at a school in Swaziland, which was the equivalent of A-level, and it's a pre-university program. After that, I went to a well-known university in America, the University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA, where I studied civil engineering, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from UCLA. Upon my return to Africa. I worked in South Africa initially for a company by the name of Marion Roberts, Marion Roberts Buildings, before finally returning to Zambia, where I continued to work for them until we separated, when it was felt that the business was not, the business in Zambia was not their main focus, and they looked elsewhere. I subsequently joined Zulu Baro, which is one of the well-known Zambian engineering consulting firms, where I worked with my older brother, Levi Zulu, and other partners. I was a partner and an employee at that firm. And it was a great experience because it gave me an opportunity to traverse the country, working on many different projects to do with whether it be feeder roads in southern province, whether it was water programs, whether it was just urban planning. I was fortunate during my time to have also worked on some of the planning aspects for Lusaka. You know, there was a master plan study for Lusaka done by JICA, which we were involved with. Now, Zulu Baro, I was with them until I started my political career in 2001, where it was felt that our interests were divergent, and I didn't want to become a distraction to the business. In 2001, as you might be aware, I contested the seat in Kabwata as a PF parliamentary candidate. That time...
Tell me something.
Yes.
Please just put me in line. 2001, His Excellency, the late President Michael Sata, he had started his political party or not?
Yes, he had. Yeah, that's why as you might be aware, Michael Sata for a long time was one of the key figures in the MMD. And at some point when he differed with the then President Chiluba and felt that he could not continue, he founded the PF with other stakeholders and started pushing, basically promoting his own vision of what leadership and development that could be brought to the country. So as a young man, as a young
son to the visionary,
a young man, educated, if you will, we were always criticizing. We always had input. No, Number, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And the old man, my father, as a great teacher, would listen patiently. Was never dismissively, but he would always, there was always a refrain. He said, the problem with you young people, you just want to talk. You're armchair critics, you just talk. When are you ever going to participate? When are you ever going to think? You see what we're doing, you see how things are being impacted, you criticize people that are involved in politics. But if you want to see people that you can relate to, maybe you should think about also participating in politics. So I never joined the MMD in any capacity as a youth, but by association we just used to follow. Sometimes we used to follow the goings on. And so in 2001, as a non-politician, because public speaking was not something that I was used to. I decided to take the plunge. I said, okay, fine. I believe in what it is you're trying to do. I subscribe to it, and I am prepared to put myself forward as a candidate. Now, this was not an easy thing to do. at all, because as I said, I didn't have that persona of my father. So people see you, they expect a replica of Michael Sata. I was not that. But I felt it was important that I represent my demographic. I represent other individuals that were born as Zambians in 1964, that knew no federation, that knew no other Zambia. Other Zambians that wanted to see this country being transformed by its own people. So that is how we put ourselves forward, I and some others. As you're aware, there was, I think, between 40 and 50 seats that PF contested in 2001 because we could not find candidates. People were laughing and said, oh, this Michael Sata is a madman. Where does he think he's going to win an election? But we said, no, it's fine. We will stand. And it was a good learning experience, and that was my first experience with politics. But it was quite laughable because at times you'd be introduced to a group and they'd say, okay, introduce yourself. So you'd get up and mention your name. And then they'd be expecting more. But now we can But so that was the start of my political career in 2001. In the subsequent election, 2006, I did not contest. In 2011, I briefly thought of putting my name forward to as an aspirant for Lusaka Central, which at the time was held by one Guy Scott, who had indicated that he might not stand. When it became clear that he was still going to continue, I withdrew my expression of interest, and opted to apply for the candidature of councillor in Lusaka Central, in Ward 16 in Lusaka Central. So that's how we contested. PF, as you know, won all the seats at the parliamentary level, won all the seats at the council level, and that's how we joined the council. Now, again, it was not. It was a very great learning experience because we are quick to criticize the council and councillors, but they work under tremendous difficulties with very limited resources. And so it was a good learning experience for me as a young politician. And I would recommend that experience to all those that aspire to join the game of politics.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Of course, your dad formed the political party in 2001. At what point did you know that one day my father would be president?
Well, we didn't, to be honest with you. You do things with faith. I initially it was difficult. But after the 2006 election, the 2006 election, when we saw the momentum and the crowds, at that point we started believing that it was possible, that he could be president. And I remember when we were getting the results of the election in 2006 and we were winning, at that point I knew that he was going to be president. Of course, subsequently, the results changed. So then we had the 2008 elections, and we were winning again, and this was the best chance ever of him becoming president, despite having overcome the heart attack that he'd suffered a few months prior to that. And again, I believed, but there was now a bit of caution because this being Africa and Zambia, we had to wait for the final declaration to take place. Of course, you know what happened in 2008. So in 2011, when we were winning, it was only when the Chief Justice declared the result that we knew and accepted. But I still remember having some nightmares a few weeks earlier that this was all a dream and the result again had been overturned. So in terms of believing, I would say that from the early 2000s, not 2001, from about 2004, 2005, we saw that really the momentum was picking up. People were beginning to subscribe.
I see.
Yes, sir.
Do you realize that in 1993, first of all, do you realize that when President Sata was Minister of Local Government, he gave me that flat with my wife, flat too?
No, I
just
had no
opposite.
way. I had no way.
I know you had no idea, but we were being evicted from Kalundo because the old man knew where I lived, and he just said, Pastor Chiluba, move from Kalundo. Come and live here in the constituency. So flat number 2, Mesa Flats, he would come there and meet his opponents.
Okay.
We were near the late Mo.
Okay.
He would call his opponents and say, Natukumane Kuriba Pastor for fair game.
Okay.
And that was 1991. You know, we were the first occupant there. But why I asked about this, because you see, your father, may so rest in peace, and myself, we came a long way. And it was amazing that time he was living in Avondale near the complex there.
Yes.
One day he calls me, 1993, and he says, Pastor Chiluba, come and pray for me. And pray for this cadre. 1993. I said, why should I pray for this, Mr. Sata? He says, I want you to pray for me that they don't backslide because I'm going to be president of this country. That was in 1993.
Wow.
And then he calls me to the office when he was at that near national meeting. I think he was now minister without portfolio or whatever.
Yes.
He calls me there again and he says, Pastor Chiluba, I'm going to be president of this nation. In short, I'm saying I'm so privileged that you being the son, you didn't see the greatness that was around your father and the potential that he had. But some of us who are outside and we look through, you see a visionary. Can you imagine 1993 saying, I'm going to be president? So it was not just by accident. And I'm so grateful to the Lord that from 1990, him and I, even in Avondale, he came to our servants' quarter. We go a long way.
Yes.
You know.
Well, what is quite evident is that he had the vision and the belief from quite early on. For those of us that were very close within the family, sometimes I think we were shielded from the political ambitions and aspirations. But I think, as you say, when you were outside, it was easier to see the potential.
Notice, yeah.
Because I had a friend that came to visit from South Africa, and you know, all South Africans that grew up under apartheid were, I think, a lot more politically aware than if we're. And he said to me at that time, he said, you know what, your father, I think, can be a president. And I thought he was just talking, you know, I really I couldn't. But talking to people now, you realize that they had seen that in him. He had seen it himself, and others had seen it. It took us a while once we bought into the vision and realized, okay, fine, now he's a leader of his own party, and this is a grand vision. Then, of course, yes, we were all working towards that. But it took a while for it to actually register as a reality, as a possibility, as you know, something that could actually come to pass.
Let's go back to the experience that you have acquired,
Yes,
or
sir.
that you acquired, because you know, it's one thing to believe in somebody, and it's another thing to see them develop. I say this, probably one of my sons that I've raised up here could be watching. Abe Oshimba, he works for Bank of Zambia.
Yes.
There was a time I was living in St. Bonaventure. We're living in St. Bonaventure. When the late president was taking the children to Baobab school, he calls me and he says, "Pastor, where are you?" It was early morning. I said, "I'm coming from Woodlands. I was taking my children to school." And he says, "Let's meet at Lamasat. You know, there near National Service?"
Yes, yes, I know the place.
Just there. And I arrived earlier, and before long, President Sata comes to park. You know, there was almost an accident there. Because when he just came out of the car, and we came out of the car, just one man shouted, "Bomber." And within 20 minutes, there was no one to control the crowd there. When we were getting into Lamasat, that shop there, the security could not contain it. And people were saying, "This man has an experience to rule the nation." They kept on shouting, chanting, and everyone, that before we knew it, we had over 1,000 people
Yes.
that early morning. What I'm saying is this: the experience that he had, you know, being governor, being this, wherever he went, he left a mark. And there are people who just join politics because it's open, I know, without without experience. Let's go with your experience. At what point did you enter as a politician?
Well, I started first as a candidate, a losing candidate, when I was still technically a youth. And 10 years later, that's when I contested and became a councillor. So we went backwards, basically went back to the drawing board. I think with hindsight, maybe even at the very beginning, it would have served me well to start as a councillor, but no matter. I think you pick up the pieces as you go along. So I served as councillor, and when there was a vacancy for the position of deputy mayor, when our deputy mayor was seconded to the mission in Botswana, I contested and won the position of deputy mayor in the council.
For Lusaka?
For Lusaka. So from that position, when the term of office came for my predecessor, Daniel Chisenga, I put my name forward, and the party fell behind me, and I subsequently was elected the mayor of Lusaka. Yes. But already there was a lot of experience gained just from being in the council. As you're aware, we did not have executive mayors at the time. So the council was, the mayor was more of a council chair, but you oversaw the different decisions, the formulation of budgets and the other things that the council was trying to do. We tried in our own different ways to make the council more viable, to reduce the debt and backlog to retirees and to quasi-national institutions like NAPSA and the LASIF and the others. But there's a lot more that needs to be done to support the local authorities. And personally, first of all, let me step back a bit. As mayor, I was also elected the president of the Local Government Association of Zambia. In that position, I was privileged to visit many councils across the country and to attend international fora where the development and the improvement of local authorities was the main emphasis. So apart from being a mayor, I've been also the president of the local government association.
May I ask you there, Mr. Sata, who is responsible,
yes, sir,
for these eye-pricking buildings in Lusaka, which are constructed under 2 weeks? And sorry to say this, most of these buildings, like if you go Kamwala flyover bridge, this side, they are held by Asians, of course I know. Who is responsible for town planning and to just bring a city to a modern place than what we see? Is it the council, or is it, who is in charge?
Well, ideally it should be the local authorities, but there have been some historical challenges with that. The area you've just referred to, from Kafue roundabout going towards Kafue, or going towards Makeni there, there was a directive given by the local Ministry of Local Government that the land 300 meters from the road was to be administered by the Ministry of Local Government. So in as much as the councils were responsible for it, that power was usurped by the Ministry of Local Government. And that is a historical anomaly which has yet to be rectified. The challenge with institutions sometimes, the change is very slow, and it's incremental. So I would like to urge our colleagues in the Ministry of Local Government to give back that control for that particular area, for my brother, for that area on Kafue Road, the 300 meters on either side, to give that control back to the local authorities. We found other anomalies when I was mayor. The Ministry of Local Government, Mr. Chenda, came to pay a courtesy call on me, and we toured some projects within Lusaka. And so there we were checking out some drainage works, and we're asking, whose project is this? This was in Northmead. Is it, what council, what are you doing here? And further investigation came to show that this was a project being done by the Ministry of Local Government. So there tends to be a bit of overlap and some conflict sometimes, that some of the simpler projects, obviously we can understand the big projects, like the Lusaka decongestion project might be a bit too much for the councils to swallow. But some of the smaller projects like drainage and other things, the council is very capable of managing those. So I hope that at some point the councils will be allowed to use the capacity that they do have.
Please, I'm asking this out of ignorance. You earlier alluded to the fact that when you were mayor, it was not executive, you were more or less like chairman. Now there is a mayor who is an executive person.
Well, that was the idea behind the current mayorship. But again, that was incomplete, because there were some parts of the Constitution that were not included that would have given that mayor that would have allocated resources and authority to him, to enable him to act as an executive mayor.
Two things, Mr. Sata. Would you say, I just want to understand this. Yes, there
the mayor is not an executive mayor.
Okay. Okay. Would you say then that in the council there were some also elements of corruption? I say this. Why is it that some sections, I can take you from Kamwala bus stop coming to Kabwata all the way there up to St. Patrick's. just along Chilimbulu Road. I wonder if there is a Zambian who owns a piece of land, and then those places and some other places. Would you say that Zambians had no money, or there was some element of corruption in the council? Because I know for sure that the Ministry of Lands has got these anomalies which cannot be hidden, that there is a lot of corruption in some section. Would you say that even in the council there were some elements of corruption?
Well, there have always been allegations of corruption against the councils, but for me to definitively say that there has been corruption on particular cases, I think you have to look on a case-by-case basis. And then also, I think we should be cautious not to become racist or racial about these things. I think the Zambians get plenty of opportunities to participate, to invest. You recall that when President Chiluba sold the houses in all the government and council houses, or the majority of the council houses in Lusaka at giveaway prices, it was Zambians primarily that benefited from these. And it was the same Zambians who were then selling the same properties. So you cannot come now and say that, no, look at the people that are owning. So I think we have to take some responsibility also for the opportunities we get and what we do with these opportunities. Even with the Ministry of Lands, when there's land allocation, it's not that necessarily people from non-Zambian investors or other types of Zambian investors go and corrupt officials. A lot of times they buy from Zambians themselves.
Let me qualify this. I know we are on national television, Mr. Sata, and being a pastor,
yes, sir,
I'm privileged to deal with these cases as a pastor. When you were allocating, I know you were not the mayor then, when you were allocating those plots on the left of Flyover Bridge, I've talked about this. The first thing that I asked the guys from the council who have now retired was, how is the sewer system? Where are you going to connect this? They said, oh, boss, we are about to retire. If we don't get some of these projects done, we will die poor. Now that kind of thing, I just asked about the sewer system. Who was planning to say this should go into, maybe Ngombe should go into this? The whole thing, the whole is planned. I know for sure that there are some people that were there who have retired who would rather just get a 50,000 kwacha and put the nation in disarray. And my question is, as a council, as a mayor or whatever, will there be a time when you can visit plot by plot and say, how is this constructed? Where is the sewer connected? Will there be a time when we can develop like that?
Well, we're working towards that. There have been various projects to, first of all, we need to map Lusaka properly. We need to allow for the servicing of plots. A lot of times what has happened, a lot of the Lusaka development are informal. They start as informal settlements that quickly grow in size. Then it becomes politically inexpedient to remove people that have invested in property in those areas. Ideally, the way it used to work before is that you would, when there's a creation of plots, there's servicing of the same plots. But the majority of Lusaka now is not serviced. The traditional townships of Lusaka have services. If you talk about Matero, Kawata, Liva, the townships, the former council properties, Livala, those were serviced. But when you started talking about Kawate Extension or Chalala and those areas. Those generally we try to play catch up. People build first, then we start trying to service. But it's also to do with resources. The councils at the moment do not have the resources to service the plots first. And again, there's a bit of a silo mentality because now you've got Lusaka Water and Sewerage, which should be a part of the council, which is now an entity unto itself, owned severally by the councils of Lusaka, Chongwe, and Kafue. That raises its own funds. But ideally, the council should be working with Lusaka Water and Sewerage. Ideally, the council should be working with ZESCO to make sure that as areas are planned and created, the services are there, that we don't get an endless number of boreholes being drilled, which has a devastating effect on our water table. You'll see now that in Lusaka, people are drilling over 100 meters. Most places on Lusaka where previously you could dig 5-10 meters and find water. So the problems are many, but having sat on the board of Lusaka Water and Sewage as a representative of the council, I know that there are many plans that are being worked on. Even if we can highlight the Millennium Challenge project, which was to do with drainage and the perennial flooding that takes place in Lusaka, that has addressed many of the challenges we faced in many areas, not all of them, but it's a step in the right direction. So,
may I say something, Mr. Sata? Sorry. You have no idea about this, what I'm going to say.
Yes, sir.
But there is one area where there was some compromise around some place. And you were governor. Mayor. So that was a controversy. And some officials in the chamber with you, they said, Pastor Chiluba, as long as Mulenga Sata is mayor, you see a road this place, because there was an anomaly. And that man is difficult to corrupt. He's going to demolish this. I followed that case. Like I said, as a pastor, I get so interested to know what is happening and where.
Okay.
And that case was very controversial. And I think before long or whatever, you left the office, and that project still went on. It's a project where if there was an audit by the government, you find that, no, this house was not supposed to be here.
We've had many challenges like that in Lusaka. You will recall that between Mtendere and Chainama Golf Club, there used to be a road joining Kamloops.
Yes.
I think if you go there now, you will not be able to drive across that road. So the challenges are historical. I think when you're dealing with an analog system, as ours can be at times, it's difficult to correct some of these things until it's too late. And speaking, if there was an anomaly that took place in my time, it's regrettable. But I must defend myself.
I'm saying your firm stance is what I liked.
Okay.
Because these people said, as long as Mulenga Sata is mayor, that thing won't take off. And for sure it didn't take off. Okay. I'm just recommending your stance of saying you can't do this.
Okay.
You know, sometimes we make decisions to be popular, but you know, a leader must be able to say whether I lose a job, this is not the right thing. And that is one of the best compliment I received from some powers that be that you worked with in the council.
Well, we're grateful. It's a difficult job, and I think, I don't know if I should be complimented for doing the correct thing, but
we just have to do the right thing, Mr. Sata. I don't know how many times I've told you, Mr. Sata, I believe in you. I know some qualities of your father, the DNA of your father, I knew. You may not be as loud and as frank as your father was, but there are some qualities that you cannot detach from your dad and yourself. And one of the things that we are saying is that some people don't even have experience. Please finish. You were mayor. Let's go. Some people have to know.
Okay.
I just stopped and interrupted on the buildings.
So I was mayor for 7 months. As you're aware, in 2014, we lost the late President Mulenga Sata. And so as per the provisions of the Constitution at that time, there was a presidential by-election, and the current president, Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu, was elected. And I was honored and privileged to be nominated to the National Assembly, to Parliament, and subsequently appointed as Deputy Minister at State House. So,
by the current president.
By the current president. As a result of that, I had to relinquish my seat at the council. So there was another by-election there, and my good friend and older brother George Nyendwa is the one that took the seat and did a commendable job under the circumstances. So I served as Deputy Minister at State House until a few months before, just before the dissolution of Parliament, when I was transferred to Lusaka Province as Minister, Deputy Minister. There was a bit of confusion as to which one it was at the time, but we'll just say Lusaka Province Minister. I think people have always understood that it was a deputy mayoral, deputy ministerial position. So that, again, was a short-lived experience, but a valuable experience. At least I got to meet and got to pay a courtesy call on my colleague at the council and try to see how we could work together to improve the operations of the council. Should I carry on?
Yeah, I'm just happy because, you know, that CV that you have, it's quite rich. If somebody asks me, Pastor Chiluba, when did you graduate from Bible College? And when I tell people that I graduated in 1984, 82 we went into Bible College, graduated in 1984. These are not few years, Mr. Sata.
Yes.
I've had that experience as a pastor. Now, today you find that people are going into politics, maybe because of just wanting to be there. And are you in politics or you quit?
No, I'm still very much in politics. I was hoping that we would still get to that. Currently, I serve in the National Mobilization Committee of the Patriotic Front. We, as we gear up in the run-up to the forthcoming elections, it was felt there was a need to galvanize the forces to supplement the efforts of the structures within the party.
Were you UPND at one time?
Yeah, at one point, yes. In 2016, there was, I separated briefly with the PF. It was a very regrettable period, and I apologized on a number of occasions for that, but I was going through personal challenges, and I think I was not in the right frame of mind. But, you know, as I say, politics is you join political parties out of choice. You know, it's not, you know, but even if I can use the analogy of marriage, people differ within marriages where they've taken vows before God. They separate and they still come back together and
reunite.
Yeah. And so even while I was on sabbatical on the other side, I think everybody understood that we were still PF. Even with the other colleagues that we came with from PF, we were referred to as by PF, mu UPND. We would congregate together as by PF, mu UPND. So, yes, so that was a difficult time, and I must say that I was very conflicted because I had taken a position against my own family, so sometimes it was difficult to express myself and to speak. Even as we're driving around and you're seeing the development that the same government you're fighting had brought, which I had been a part of, it was very difficult.
You know, on Sunday, Mr. Sata was preaching, and I said when we were in grade 4 in Imbala, our headmaster, were boys, he said there are 2 words that even graduates fail to pronounce. I'm sorry and thank you. You know, to hear you say you regret and you are sorry for the decision that you made, it takes leadership qualities. Other people just ignore like nothing happened.
And I must finish the part of the equation. And I'd like to say I'm thankful grateful to His Excellency President Lungu and the leadership of the party for embracing me and understanding that me and others who were led astray, for embracing us back in the fold. You know, the position of national mobilization is a crucial one, and I think we have a lot of work to do. So in 2016, when I briefly joined the other side, I contested the seat in Kabata, where again I was beaten by my nemesis, Given Luvinda, who had also defeated me in 2001.
Yeah.
You know, so but again, as I said, it was a difficult experience, and I must say there was a bit of relief when PF still won the day, because I don't know how I was going to live with myself if I'd helped destroy what we'd helped to put together.
Especially with your father.
Exactly,
yeah.
but you know, what Michael Sata was great at galvanizing people, but it was not Michael Sata alone that built PF. There are millions of people across the country that believed in him.
You can say that again.
That helped to put PF in power. He was just the focal point. As I said,
he was a leader.
He was a galvanizing agent. So where I've been back with the family, I think you noticed that after the election, I basically kept a very low profile. And it's only now that I've decided that it's important. Well, I've been given the platform to speak again for this party that we helped to build, and to make sure that the constituents that we were speaking for when I joined politics are still represented. You know, other people, you know, PF is a party of many diverse backgrounds, and I think you need that diversity, that representation at all levels within the party.
May I ask this, Mr. Sata? Politics this side, development this side. What is it that people want to get out of politics, other than saying, okay, Kabwata, Chivolia, these places are not well located. We must bring, you remember your father sent the bulldozers in Mississippi compound because he wanted to bring development there. But what is it that people fight for in politics without understanding that development must take place?
Well, people obviously have many different motives. You know, for some people it's the prestige of being referred to as an honorable The others, the aspiration is to be driven by a chauffeur with a flag. And the truth be told, there are some benefits to being a member of parliament. Maybe whether it's about getting some loans or duty-free facilities here and there, but people have many different motives. I've spoken to many different people, so it's really about what they see for themselves. Others, they've made money now, they just want some political influence and political relevance. Others have been involved in the communities and are pushed forward by the people that believe in them.
If you are to advise the nation, Mr. Sata, you are to advise the nation, you are in the national mobilization. What are the three qualities would you look for a leader who can have Zambia at heart, who can, whether I am appointed as Minister of Commerce or Minister of this, it doesn't matter. Let me go there and bring my contribution to the nation. What are some of the qualities, would you say, if you are to vote for people with this qualification? With your massive experience and background, I know you cannot just speak from the PF point of view, you speak from the national point of view.
Well, I think key of all, somebody must have a spirit for the community that they are hoping to represent. So that would be manifested through community projects that they might be doing, that they're hoping to do. They must be accessible. Too often, our leaders, once they become elected, become inaccessible. And they must also be good communicators. They must be able to absorb the wishes, desires, and aspirations of the people they represent, and convey them to the powers that be, that can change, whether they be NGOs, whether it be government. It's not all the time that it's just government that must do. There's a lot of things that are done by private players, whether they be churches, NGOs, and the like. So for me, I would say, I think three is difficult to cover everything.
I'll help you with one.
Maybe you can help me with
what I believe, Mr. Sata, you see, you and I come a long way again. You know that I'm a pastor.
Yes.
You have not been vulgar in your language to me when we are conversing. I've called you, Mr. Sata, I want to speak to you on this, and you give me attention,
yes, sir,
knowing that I'm a pastor. And when I say, Mr. Sata, I want to say something, you know that you are not just talking to a riffraff. I think the first qualification, Mr. Sata, anyone contesting any position must know God. That requirement, as you mobilize, don't leave it, because the Bible says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And if you cannot fear God, you can do anything when you are in power. You can steal, you can mistreat people, like you are saying. Some people, when they are there right now, we are seeing money being flashed. If you vote for me, I wish all that money can be flashed throughout 5 years. But it's because they know that August is coming. I need a vote. What I'm saying is, if I can't speak into your life to say, Mr. Sata, you are wrong here, I don't think the nation can speak into your life. And that is one of the missing ingredients in politicians. Please take that message from me, that whoever wants to stand, let them find a church, whether they are hiding there or whatever, but they must have the fear for God.
Yes.
Yeah, that is the first and the key one.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Sata, let's get a break. Just ask my director to give us just an advert about this interview, and then let's open it to the people. They may want to ask questions to you, and may God bless this great nation of Zambia. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Heard about Msika? Do you know that you can advertise for as low as 150 kwacha for 30 seconds? Well, Msika is here. Advertise on Msika between 17 hours and 18 hours. Just tell us about the services that you offer and we'll gladly put you on the market. For more details, you can contact +260 953 995099. +260 962 444 726 or +260 971 177 467. Msika, allowing your business to grow.
2021 is finally here. Zambia is at the crossroads heading towards general elections this August. In the world where fake news, biased reporting on national issues has become the order of the day, in a world where social media in most cases spills lies and exaggerated information, insightful coverage, Zambia needs one media. Living in a country where people are slowly promoting tribalism, hatred, bitterness and revenge, political temperature is heating up and people's hearts are perplexed. Zambia needs one media. Zambia being a Christian nation living under the lordship of Jesus Christ, the nation cannot afford a compromised gospel. Zambia needs a prophetic media house. For hope, peace and unity, Zambia needs Camnet Television. For non-biased, factual reporting, balanced opinion, accurate news coverage, Zambia needs Camnet Television. For national projects and development of our beloved country Zambia, watch Camnet TV on channel 274 DSTV, channel 98 on GoTV and channel 106 on Topstar. Remember, Camnet TV is not just another channel.
Welcome, TV viewers. In the studio, I have with me Mr. Mulenga Sata, who is one of the young, vibrant leaders. Those of you who have worked with him, those of you that have seen his potential, I call him a vibrant leader because of some of the colleagues he has worked with, and who would tell you this man is like this. You see the father here and there, but of course, until I give you a lot of verses and the Bible, you know how to move and navigate. Dear Camnet TV viewers, our phone lines are open. I have, like I always say on Camnet TV is not just another channel. If you want to contribute, don't come on my guest and say, hey, but you know, we must be civil. Bring your contributions. Let's see how we can develop this nation together. Just being a critic and just talking aimlessly, it doesn't pay. Mr. Sata, you know, my wife and I are advocates of Zambians getting involved in developing Zambia through agriculture. Do you think it's possible that we can develop Zambia through agriculture?
Well, this is the low-hanging fruit that's been hanging for the last 50 years, which we haven't quite managed to grab a hold of. You find that the large-scale commercial farming is done by our settler colleagues or expatriates, and the Zambian players are very few. We're limited to smallholder or peasant farming. So what I would like to see is large-scale Zambian farming operations. And I know that this is a vision also of His Excellency. He's bemoaned the fact to say, but where are the big Zambian business people? Where are the big Zambian farmers? And agriculture is one of the key drivers. It's one of the low-hanging fruit, because you plant a crop within a year or two, or maybe if it's cashew nut, 7 years, you start reaping the benefit. But with that also, we must harness it to processing. Now, if you look at our economic recovery plan, that was put out by the Ministry of Finance in...
Let's pick up this call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Pastor.
How are you, sir?
I'm alright. This is Sandra speaking.
You are who?
Sandra speaking from Lusaka.
Mr. Piri from Lusaka.
Yes. The boys were mentioning the other day when I called you Bishop, and then you said, no, that's the next station. Speak and say. You remember that?
Mr. Piri, please go ahead and speak to the nation.
When I see Mulenga Sata,
Yes.
I see my late last president, Mr. Mulenga Sata. That was the very greatest man that the Zambian people have ever had taken from His Excellency, the President, Dr. Edgar Katarungu. Mr. Sata was humble like that. Whenever he's talking to people, he would put his hands behind his back, meaning that he's listening to you and he's respecting you. Mr. Sata taught us how to love one another. I remember whenever he goes to church, there was that song, Catholic song, that used to sing, to them one. If you know that song, Mr. Sata, you bear with me.
Yes.
Mr. Sata was the greatest man, and I'm happy that his son, Mr. Sata, is back in our strong party, the mighty party, patriotic party. We respect that, and I'm going to accept the coming back of Mr. Sata, the patriotic party, and come forward. My vote is not going other than His Excellency, the President, Dr. Edgar Katarungu. It's a part about an opportunity to go through the country, has gone to Government, has gone to Eastern Province, has gone to Akula, has gone to Northern Province. The development that the people of these provinces that I've mentioned are enjoying, including Southern and Northern Province. Those were the things that our next president, that was wanted for the people there.
May I ask Mr. Piri?
And His Excellency, the President, Edgar Katarungu, has been important in development. We have no doubt about the patriotic plan.
May I ask?
That goes and opposed for us as the state, we're going to go to
I see, Mr. Piri, that it doesn't take mathematician to know that you are PF. You are so entrenched in it, but I am saying, how do you think Zambians can participate and become, make this nation great irrespective of political affiliation? How do you think Zambians will make this nation great? I see that you are listening to your TV. Please remove the volume there because it's taking time. Oh, that is one of your followers, I know, Mr. Piri.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Piri, for those kind sentiments. The PF has done a tremendous job in terms of developing infrastructure. We are looking forward now to building around that infrastructure, to making sure that agriculture and imports can get in and out from all areas of the country, and that Another cornerstone of the economic recovery plan, which is tourism, is promoted throughout the country. And of course, mining as well. You need to be able to get your raw materials in, you need to be able to get your plant and equipment. You need to get your raw material out, and you need to be able to get your plant and equipment in. Yes.
I've been speaking to a lot of people, Mr. Sata, among them some who are key players in their countries. When I say they are key areas, these are people who sit down with their presidents and talk about the development. And one of the things that I've been so happy is that I've come across certain people who have said, Pastor Chilwa, do you know that if Zambia gets involved in agriculture, you can have more money than what the mine brings in? Is that true, Mr. Sata?
I absolutely agree with that. We have so much potential. If you look at the water resources we have, you know, Zimbabwe has a fraction of what we have. Well, maybe I shouldn't be mentioning other countries, but they have over the years outstripped us for the most part when it comes to agricultural production. Even with tourism, I think there was 1 year under study where Zambia recorded officially 300,000 tourists visiting Zambia, whereas Zimbabwe and Botswana recorded close to 2 million. So there's something that we haven't quite gotten right, and I think as we roll out this, the economic recovery plan, we'll streamline some of the challenges that have existed in the tourist sector. I know that every day the different stakeholders, tourist operators and others, are meeting with officials at the ministry with ZAWA and whatnot, and we hope that sooner rather than later, particularly now with the urgency needed to recover economically, that things will be put in place so that we can start attracting the tourists that we're used to. Given that at the moment we're suffering from the COVID pandemic, which has affected the tourism across globally, we will have to compete more vigorously to attract tourists back to our country. So we need all the players, all the stakeholders sitting around the table, just making this process as easy, as straightforward as possible.
Can I ask, Mr. Sata, when you and I sit and other Zambians, do you see a situation where from the political angle, you, UPND, Mr. Kambwidi and all this, you can come together and say, for the sake of the peace of Zambia, let's have Indaba, let's meet together. Do you see that happening?
Well, for me, I've never understood really why we couldn't have that, because despite the polar opposites of the two main political players, we have a lot in common. You know, as I said, I briefly journeyed to the UPND, and you realize that these you know, they have their dreams and aspirations and things that they would like to see.
And you have friends who
we have friends
who are UPND.
If we grow up in one Zambia, one nation, we never used to know that. I like to give the example of my friend Gary Nkombo. I didn't know until I was an adult that he's a Tonga man. I just knew that.
Yeah.
You know, it was not important.
Yeah.
Who you grew up with, and I did an interview last week with a gentleman from Kawe, who's has a Lozi name, Liseli, if I remember correctly, and I greeted him in my little Lozi, and he says, "I'm sure I can't speak any Lozi." So you know. And that was normal, you know,
Yeah.
because you grew up speaking what was there. You did not separate yourself. I think you've heard the president himself speaks fluent Bemba, Lamba, and that's as a result of his upbringing in the Copperbelt. The late Anderson Mazoka spoke fluent Bemba. That's as a benefit of having gone to school in Mungwi.
Yeah.
And
or is it Malole?
Malole is what I know.
Yeah.
So the differences, there's no difference that is so marked that people can't sit. So it's above my pay grade to invite people for an indaba, but we do it in our own little way when we meet our colleagues. I meet colleagues who are in different...
Why I'm saying this, Mr. Sata, because like you mentioned, if you and Gary Nkombo are seen talking together, walking together, without people saying he wants to join, you know, that picture is very good for the cadres. Where President HH, President Chimbakambwili, His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu, and other people just come together and sit. I think, yes, we may differ in opinions, we may differ in this, but the peace of the nation is very prime. Because once you lose the peace, you may have the money in the world, you may have all the dreams in the world,
absolutely.
You'll have lost it.
And there have been many attempts by leaders at different levels to show that they interact with different political leaders. Mumbi Piri, our deputy SG, at one point there was a picture of her socializing with some members of the opposition, and she actually posted a voice note saying that, you know, I don't know why you people want to kill yourself, because if you sit just chatting, but why do you want to kill yourself over political beliefs? And I remember a time when, particularly during times of mourning, funeral, there was a ceasefire. You know, the different political parties would pay their respects.
During the times of what?
Funerals, mourning.
Yeah.
You know, you would get different political parties coming to pay their respects. But Apanomba, you don't know what's going to happen when different funeral processions cross each other, which is highly unfortunate. So I think we need to bring the temperature down, and it starts with we the leaders showing visibly that we are able to interact with our fellow leaders who might have called us all sorts of unmentionables, but we're able to sit with them and have a civil conversation with them about the greater good of the country.
What message will you pass, Mr. Sata, to the nation? Yes, I know you are PF. What message would you pass to the nation in the light of development? I am very concerned about that. Zambia needs not to be poor. Secondly, in the interest of the peace that we should keep, what message would you say to the nation before we go and have a good rest?
Okay. We as Zambians need to learn to be more nationalistic. This is our only Zambia. There's no other Zambia. If we lose it, we'll have nowhere else to go. So we need to take ownership of the projects and not wait for expatriates to come and develop it for us. So if it means supporting Zambia businesses, we need to do that. There's a WhatsApp group that I'm a member of, Buy Z Zambia. I would like to commend organizations and groups such as that. We need to really support each other, because I think we've seen that sometimes it's easier for a foreigner to come to Zambia and succeed in a short time than a Zambian who's been trying to do the same thing for the last 20, 30 years. But part of it has to do with support. and feedback back and forth. With regards to the peace of the country, PF is a political party. Let us look to our founding father and his attitude towards peace in the country. Michael Sata arguably won the election in 2006 and 2008, and at each instance, when people were ready to go to the street, he says, no, we can't expose, we can't endanger the lives of people because of political beliefs. So when the time is right, this thing will come. So there's a spirit of peace that has been preached from the inception of the Patriotic Front. And I would like to urge my brothers and sisters within the PF to follow that culture that we have of preaching peace within the PF. And I would also like to urge my colleagues across the political spectrum to also encourage their followers to be peaceful. Because sometimes we treat the peace we have too lightly, but we need just to look around us and see the chaos that has erupted when peace is not guarded jealously. So I would just like to say that, look, it's our Zambia. All our children are affected. All our families are affected by this. Let's leave a peaceful nation. Let's build a peaceful nation for our children and other generations to come.
I like what you said about development, that a foreigner would come. Within a short time, you succeed. And Zambians will be fighting against themselves, each other. And from the business point of view, how do we make people believe in themselves? If you start a project, we rally behind it. If I start a project, we rally behind it. Because I believe, this is just my belief, without racism, without tribalism, without any ism, I believe that the person who is Zambian has the Zambia at heart. And for Zambia to develop, it has to get Zambians to be involved. How do we unite as Zambians?
We need to learn lessons from countries around us and other countries. Go to Botswana, for example. I went to school in Botswana. I've visited Botswana from that time, many times over the years. And in Botswana, you cannot come in as an investor and set up a business without having a local partner. If you can't find one, they will give you a local partner. So I think that is a first.
Same with Ethiopia.
Yes. Here we tend to, investors can come as long as they fulfill the requirements of the investment license. They can come in with the little or no local participation and get support. First of all, get support from the Zambia Development Agency in terms of incentives. We need to start giving some of those incentives to local investors as well, who at times collectively, in fact many a time collectively, are investing much more than those foreign investors are able to.
So can we, what you just said, is it possible for us to change from saying, look guys, okay, you came in here, but we need to look at this? Is it possible to change, or
well, I mean,
we need new laws?
I think that would, there would have to be a policy, it would have to be attacked from a policy point of view, and then enacted through legislation. I think there have been attempts, there have been proclamations that no, this business will be reserved for Zambians, but they've never been backed up by the law. I think you recall that my brother Kamwili at one point had issued a proclamation that I think was it quarrying or block making or some other business, chicken rearing and others would be reserved for Zambians. But without legal backing, those proclamations were just proclamations. So you find that some of these sectors, whether it's chicken rearing or block making, are still dominated by foreign investors. And some of these are not very complicated businesses. I mean, you know, it's not something requiring a huge input in terms of investment. There are things that Zambians are more than capable of doing, but with the support. I think sometimes it's challenging, first of all, trying to access finance, and then also trying to compete without incentive. Our colleagues, apart from the incentives they get from us, are also able to access cheaper financing more often than not. So we won't call it a subsidy, but we need support
from the government
and government institutions. I think even institutions such as ZRA, I think instead of playing maybe having a more punitive approach, should be looking really to make people compliant. So, okay, how can we work together to get you compliant, rather than if you don't pay this, we're going to put these penalties, we'll close you. Same with the NAPSA, they should be looking to make people compliant or move people towards compliance, rather than threatening them with the exorbitant penalties that might force the business out of, force businesses out of business, so to speak, or make them unsustainable.
Well, Mr. Sata, it's been a wonderful experience for me to be with you here. On behalf of my wife, you know, like I said, we were in the hospital. The grace of God has been so good. This is the first interview I'm having after so many weeks. And I'm so grateful that you had time to come. All I can wish you is the best.
Thank you.
That you follow the legacy of your father, and that, like I said, you attach yourself to God more solid and your friends, so that we make Zambia not just a Christian nation by way of mouth, but even by our practice.
Yes.
I'm so grateful, and please convey my love and greetings to your wife and family. May God bless you.
Thank you very much. And also let me end by also commending you on the growth of your church and your growth of your studio. I think the efforts to diversify the business are really what we Zambians needs, and you serve as an inspiration, not just talking, but showing through deed what Zambians can do. I think not too long ago, when we were growing up, the thought of a Zambian owning a TV station was something totally inconceivable. We're glad to see now that it can be done, and we hope to see how the business continues to evolve together with your ministry and your churches.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome, the TV viewers. I Pastor Chiluba, your host, and of course I had Mr. Mulenga Sata, a wonderful man. Please get to know him personally. We haven't talked about the gods. Next time we should come and talk about it and what you are doing and the markets out there.
Absolutely.
So that people will see that you are not just waiting for slogans in the party,
Absolutely.
but that you are doing something into agriculture. We should have talked about that.
No, that would be great. I mean, what would be nice is also maybe one day we can invite you, so you can come, you can mix it with a site visit, so you can actually see what we're doing. We are also trying to breed some rabbits. I think there's many different things that Zambians can do. I'm not naturally a farmer. If we were at Shile farm, which essentially was just a plot, because tapave chavapo. Farm without infrastructure is not a farm. It's a piece of land. So I think in terms of evolving, you need to actually put something on a farm to make it viable. And my hope is that my children, one of them will take, one or all of them will take up an interest in farming, so that when we start marrying them off, we just go and collect animals
absolutely
from the farm
and slaughter them.
I think normally they want them for breeding.
Yeah.
If all about it, Pingula, we went now looking for animals to Kokwena DC. But so we must also continue. We must build on what our parents leave us.
But there is a financial gain into what you are doing. Rabbits, goats,
absolutely,
and all this.
Absolutely. I mean, as long as you keep animals alive and you've got a critical number of them, they're basically going to breed, and they will continue to grow. So in terms of an investment, it's actually a very sound investment. So if you look at it as savings, not necessarily as a get-rich program, it's one way of continuing to grow. So you've got a little bit of change, you buy one cow, after a year or two that cow is 2 cows, and there have been initiatives by, there's a young lady, Chipo Manawasa, I think she had started a program about Own a Cow, where you can buy, a lot of people have difficulties with owning animals and owning the infrastructure, but they could invest in a farm and their shareholding would be represented by the cow, and then they could decide what they do with their investment after a certain period locked in, whether they take out their cow or their 2 cows or whatnot. But I think there are many initiatives that young people are bringing on board, and young people are not hampered by fear, so they can just try things and make mistakes as they go along. So we should look to them to draw inspiration a lot of times and guide them where we can. So I look forward to an opportunity to speak about that.
I certainly, by God's grace, will pay you a visit, because even last time at Pamos, you remember you invited me, Pastor Kam. I would like to come with some cameras from Camnet TV, and you are an inspiration. People haven't sat down with you to hear what you are doing. They may not know, but we have exchanged notes in that regard. And my passion is to look at a graduate who is looking for a job to come and sit under you, and then you tell him, look, these 10 rabbits, if you do this and this, they will give you more money than the job you are looking for.
If we can just go back a little bit, it's important also that we see where the initial inspiration came from. My first foray into goat farming was, or goat production, was when I toured the agricultural show in 2015.
Here in Zambia?
In Lusaka, at Lusaka Showgrounds with President Lungu. So, I was in the entourage, obviously. And as we were going around, we came across these Boer goats. And having engaged that gentleman...
Boer goats?
Boer goats, yes.
Yeah.
I said, would you have some animals available? And obviously you saw the president had taken a keen interest in diversifying. I think you've seen the efforts he's making in terms of fish farming, leading by example with goat farming, cattle farming. So really the inspiration came from the leadership. So look, you people should look to do more than what you're doing. So you'll find that a lot of the people in leadership now will have small pieces of land or fish farm, have fish farming projects in line with the guidance given by our visionary president, Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu. So I shouldn't take all what's the word? I can't claim initial. What's the word I'm looking for, Pastor?
You cannot claim that you had this until you toured.
Absolutely.
With the president.
Yes.
And something clicked.
Yes. So but this is also at the urging of the leadership that we as leaders also need to show by example. I think with many discussions I had also with the Minister of Agriculture at the time, Given Lubinda, we're saying as leaders, why do we rush to buy VXs and the other expensive vehicles when really we should be investing in tractors and other things that can bring development to the people? Because that VX after 5-10 years is a wreck, but the tractor will have brought a good production and the thing. So
we had a very good friend, may he so rest in peace, the late ambassador from South Africa to Zambia, Chikane, you remember?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a very good friend of mine, and I would visit him in South Africa. But one day we are having a chat, my wife and I, together with him. He says, you see, Pastor, the problem with Africans is that instead of investing in things that will last, we rush to buy vehicles. Like in South Africa, they buy very big cars, and yet they live in Alexander. And he said this, when you ask them, why should you live in Alexander and you have got a Ferrari? He says, how else will they know that I've arrived?
Well, we have a problem still of consumption, so we want to show that we have done well. But I think, you know, with time, I think people will see that it's better to invest in something that will give you a return in time than something that will just be a wreck in that same period of time. So as we've been inspired, we hope I'm happy if I'm also able to inspire others. You know, and
we'll come and cut them.
And yes, so you're more than welcome to bring any groups that you want to come and learn from our experience. And it hasn't all been rosy, but yes, we'll come and talk about that when we do come.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Welcome, Net TV viewers, once again. I'm so grateful. By the grace of God, I said by the grace of God, my wife, Pastor Victoria, and I will be here tomorrow talking about partnership of greatness. And we want all of you CamNet TV viewers to tune in, because I know you were born for greatness. Let's make Zambia one of the best countries to live in. Until we meet again tomorrow, I've been your host and my guest here, Mr. Mulenga Sata. Keep watching CamNet TV, and remember, CamNet TV is not just another channel. Bye-bye.